Welcome! And here we have another edition of allhorsetalk.com. I'm Alita Bunny Hendricks, your host, and today I'd like to talk about winter colics. Well, here we are in the midst of winter. Now, I live in Florida. We don't have a whole lot of winter. However, we do have an increase in winter colics, just as I'm sure most areas in the U.S. have. Now, the number one cause for winter colics is an impaction. In other words, that's a little blob of stuff in your horse's gut gets stuck and it creates a block. Impactions are typically due to dehydration or lack of enough moisture in their diet, in their body, and low gut motility. In other words, there's often not enough ingested matter mixed with water in your horse's gut to keep his peristaltic motion, in other words, the peristalsis, which is the muscular contractions of the intestinal tract, to keep that digested food or partially digested food moving through. So his gut gets stuck and it creates a block and he gets a tummy ache. Now, factors in winter colic: little or to no grass, and we certainly share that. Even though we live in Florida, we have no grass currently at the moment. We have some brown dead grass, but that's not the same as live green, very moist grass. When there's little to no grass, often horses will eat weeds. Now, I saw horses in a pasture nearby. This week there was no grass in their pasture. There was not even any of that dead stuff on there. So the horses were eating the oak trees and they were eating the weeds, the pokeweed, both of which are toxic to horses. So please be sure that your horses have enough proper food going into their stomach in the winter months. Basically, if it's not grass, you can think of it as being toxic to your horse. Just about everything other than pasture and hays and feedstuffs are toxic to your horse. Either a little bit toxic, like oak, or a lot toxic, like pokeweed and deadly nightshade and other weeds. Another cause of winter colic can be icy or frigid water. When it's very, very cold and your horse has ice cubes floating in his bucket or trough, it's not very tempting for him to drink water. It will make his body temperature go down, and he's smart enough to know that he doesn't want to do that. So icy or frigid water or lack of water can also be a problem. We'll talk about that too. Underfeeding of hay and fiber creates not enough stuff to go through that gut for that gut to have its proper action. So hay also has a benefit in the winter that it creates body warmth. As the fiber, the plant fiber, is fermented in the hindgut, in the large intestine at the back end of the horse's digestive tract, it creates body warmth because that fermentation process creates heat. So it's warm. Think of it as, have you ever seen a horse who has just pooped in a cold weather? What rises from that fresh pile of poop? Steam. Okay, so that's a lot of warmth in that body. While we're talking about manure, I have this under my solutions here. I have a DYK question. That's, did you know? Did you know that the average horse will void about 50 pounds of manure in one day? 50 pounds, that's as heavy as a full feed sack. So if you want 50 pounds of manure coming out of a healthy horse, then you better be putting 50 pounds of healthy stuff in so that he can create that necessary byproduct of his digestive process. So, solutions to winter colics. Now, this is not a solution to all winter colics, of course. Some horses are more susceptible and sensitive to quick temperature changes, medications, etc., other factors of colic. But these are basically colics that can be avoided through better management. So how do we want to solve our problem? We want to increase the hay or fiber to a minimum of 3% of the horse's body weight. Okay, that means if you have a 1,000-pound horse, 1,000-pound horse, he needs about 30 pounds of hay. And I'll show you what 30 pounds of hay looks like in just a few moments. At least 30 pounds of my hay. What else can you do? You can break the ice on tanks, or you can add a water heater to it. Change the water. Scroll down a little bit. Change the water. Make fresh water available to him twice a day, especially if you have a bucket system. You can empty that bucket pretty easily, twice a day. You feed him twice a day, dump the water out, and add fresh twice a day. If it's very cold, you might want to add hot water to the buckets. Or even sometimes you can add a bit of boiling water, and time that water will cool down, and when that temperature is comfortable, then your horse is more likely to drink it. Here's one of my favorites. Use buckets instead of automatic waterers to monitor their water consumption. That would include refillable tubs that you have to physically refill, tubs out in the pasture, so that you know how much water they are drinking. I know people who use automatic waterers, the bowl type of waterers, in the horses' stalls and out in the pastures. And on this one particular place, they do have a problem with colics in the winter. So please monitor your horse's water by using a bucket, at least for this critical time of year. Other things that you can do, you can feed soaked hay. You can take a clean muck bucket. You can buy them at discount stores for about $6 or $7, a muck tub size bucket. Be sure that you secure that tub to the fence or to the stall wall if you're using it, so that the horse doesn't dump it over and create a flood either in the stall or in the pasture. Okay, so you can just add that hay right to that muck bucket and wet that hay down. Get it good and wet. Let it soak in there. So that hay will absorb some water, and that will also leave hay-flavored water, which will be more encouraging for him to drink. Feed soaked hay cubes, such as alfalfa cubes. Other types of hays do come in cube form. Alfalfa is probably the most common. I do have all these little items that have an asterisk by it. It means that there is an allhorsetalk.com video on that subject already available to you. Soaked beet pulp is another way of increasing your horse's water and bulk consumption. Wet bran mashes, although again, as I cautioned in the allhorsetalk.com video on bran mashes, don't feed them every day. That should be a rare treat, maybe once or twice a week at best. Another way to encourage your horses to drink water in the cold weather is Hendrick's horse tea. And 2 to 4 gallons per horse per night, and leave it in overnight so it can settle in there and they can get used to it and drink it as they want to. Should be sufficient, anywhere 2, 3, or 4 gallons. Usually in the winter, my horses get a decrease in the grain if they're being worked less. Now in Florida in the summer, we actually work less than in the winter because it's very, very hot and humid in the summer. So that may not be appropriate for Florida, but many, many parts of the country, the horses' workload decreases in the colder winter months, so their grain should also decrease. They don't need that burst of energy. They need sustainable body heat, which is created by bulk and fiber. I'm going to show, another thing, is always provide free choice salt and or mineral block to your horse. I have one of each in each of my pastures. I know of someone who didn't have any salt available for his horses, and guess what? They had a problem with dehydration. They didn't have the salt to incite them to drink water, so they weren't too thirsty enough to drink water. So always, always have free choice salt available. Even if you feed salt in their feed, have an option for them so that if they need more, they can get more. I'm going to turn the camera off for a second, and I'm going to back up because I have examples of all of these ways to help beat winter colics.